Embassy of the Dead, Chapter 12. Whose finger is it anyway?
You can have the book if you like, said Penny, pouring out some more tea. Seems like you might need it.
Won't you miss it? Jake asked.
Oh, I know it all off by heart. Besides, I only talk to the dead through séances these days.
Jake frowned. What are séances?
I help the living contact spirits who have passed on to the afterworld. But sometimes I don't bother to contact them at all and just make it up instead. It's easier that way. It means the customers get to hear what they want to hear and you get bigger tips.
She put on a calming voice.
Auntie Julie's at peace. Her piles have cleared up and she's playing bingo in heaven.
Pipkins the cat leapt silently onto the table and began to lick around the edges of a tin of cat food that had been left open. Bad Penny gently tugged his ears before looking up at Jake.
But none of that helps you, Jake. Not now you've opened the damned thing.
Jake blinked. The damned thing? Stiffkey sighed and looked at Jake. She means the box and the finger inside it. The damned thing. I didn't want the job. I'd retired. But when the embassy asked, I couldn't say no. I had a duty to them which I've carried out faithfully. A few days ago I was summoned and asked to pass the box to Good Morning.
But why move it? Asked Penny, when it had been hidden safely with you for so long.
Well, I don't know for sure, but I heard that... Stiffkey glanced around nervously, as if someone might be there listening, before dropping his voice to a whisper. The body's been stolen. Bad Penny put down her teacup and breathed in sharply.
Oh dear, this is bad news.
Whose body? Said Jake, looking between them anxiously, but neither of them replied. Is this related to the finger? And whose finger is it anyway? Will somebody please tell me what's going on? Stiffkey's face seemed to crumple in on itself. Jake had become used to Stiffkey's default facial expression. His skin hung from his cheekbones like it had slipped slightly, and no one had bothered to pull it back up. Deep lines were etched into his forehead, a legacy of a lifetime of worrying, plus 200 more years of disapproving glances. Still, Jake had never seen him look more frowny than he did at that exact moment. As I told you earlier, there are 12 reapers in the afterworld, Stiffkey began. All as old as time itself. They ain't been people like you or I. They've never been alive. They're of the afterworld. One of those reapers be Mawkins. Another, he swallowed nervously, was Fenris. He stared hard at Jake. Fenris were a wrong 'un. Not content with being one of the most powerful beings in the afterworld, he wanted to tear down the barrier that has always existed between the afterworld and the earthly plane in order to use his old magic to gain more control over the living. But his plot was discovered, and the Embassy of the Dead was founded to enforce what everyone knows is best for both living and dead, that their worlds be kept apart. A strict set of 3 rules was laid down to govern any movement or communication between those worlds. What contact the dead may have with those on the earthly plane, which souls may pass from the earthly plane on to the afterworld, and finally, outlawing the use of the old magic, for its power was too easily manipulated. The rules were to be governed by the embassy and enforced by the 12 reapers of the afterworld, or rather 11, with Fenris to be thrown into the eternal void. Stiffkey leaned closer to Jake. But the embassy underestimated the power and cunning of Fenris, and he escaped to the earthly plane. There he managed to inhabit the body of a composer called Dasayev, who traded his eternal soul for the gift of Fenris's power. He became the greatest living composer, while Fenris just waited silently and patiently for him to die. For when he was to die... Stiffkey took his hat off and looked upwards.
Well, it would be Fenris that travelled to the afterworld, not Dasayev, and this time he would be able to complete his plan.
So what happened? Asked Jake.
Well, said Penny, picking up the story, the embassy caught wind of his plan and waited until Dasayev was dying. Then they cut off his finger,
she mimed, bringing a cleaver down hard onto the table,
and buried the rest of him.
Jake's eyes opened wide. But why? She peered over the rim of her teacup.
A spell was cast, old magic, to trap Fenris's spirit forever by splitting it between his body and his severed finger, with the finger possessing the essence, so to speak. If the two are ever reunited, his ghost will return to full strength, and make no mistake, dark times will fall upon the earthly plane. There are some powerful beings on the other side who would like nothing more than to be able to enter the earthly plane and wreak havoc. Old magic would be back, and the living would become mere playthings for the dead. But without a leader, without Fenris, their voices are silenced, and the embassy is able to keep things in check. So you see, it's imperative that the finger not fall into the wrong hands.
Ah, so let's destroy the finger, said Jake excitedly. Why keep it in a box? Let's burn it.
If only it were that simple. But you can't destroy a spirit, explained Penny. If you destroy the finger, you'd only set the spirit free. The old magic that binds it to the finger at least keeps the spirit in one place, controlled. And the lead lining on the box protects and strengthens that old magic and keeps the scent of the damned thing in, so it can't be tracked.
What is old magic? asked Jake. Stiffkey shook his head.
It ain't magic like wands and wizards. It's the way of the ghosts of old, ways that for centuries were handed down from generation to generation until the rules were agreed. Some of the living are born with some of those ways.
He looked at Jake gravely.
That's how come you're sensitive, but you do well to leave them alone.
Jake blushed. He didn't feel like he had any special powers, apart from being able to see Stiffkey, and given his current situation, that seemed to have been a disadvantage. Stiffkey shook some dirt from his cuffs and continued.
And now the embassy is facing a crisis again. The composer's body has been stolen, which means Fenris must have supporters working for the embassy, and the location of the finger may also be known. I was given the top secret mission to meet Good Morning, their most trusted undoer, so the finger could be protected in a new location.
Bad Penny threw her hands up.
But you gave it to a child instead.
Stiffkey frowned.
There's no need to keep reminding me. And now the embassy will have sent Morkins to track us down. They'll do anything to get the finger back. They might even think we're trying to help Fenris. That I'm a traitor.
Stiffkey's mind seemed to be whirring now, and he staggered back from the table as if in physical pain.
But then, what do our lives matter if the safety of the earthly plane and the afterworld be at stake?
He looked at Jake with wild eyes and said,
I thought I could think up a way out of this mess, but we have to turn ourselves in, boy. It's the only thing left to do.
Jake swallowed. And what will happen to me? Will I be killed?
Oh no, boy,
said Stiffkey, and Jake relaxed for a moment.
We'll be sent to the eternal void. That'd be much worse.
Jake's eyes widened in terror. Bad Penny placed one hand on Jake's arm and the other on Stiffkey's, urging him to sit again.
Calm down, Albert, she said. You always were one for panicking.
She took a sip of the tea.
If the embassy has been betrayed from within, then we need to think carefully before returning the damned thing to any of their agents, even Good Morning. What we need is a way to get Morkins off your back. That'll buy you some time at least. He'll be tracking you, and even if you don't open the box again, he'll find you eventually now he's got the scent.
She placed her cup back on the saucer.
You always were a good one, even if you are a self-righteous old fool. And you've done right coming here, for there is someone I can ask to give you some advice."
She shook her head.
"But I haven't travelled for a while, and I'm not sure if I can any more."
Jake screwed his face up in confusion. "I don't understand. Travel where? We can go in the camper van if that helps." Bad Penny gave a little laugh.
"Not that sort of travel, dear. I mean travel to the in-between. The man who we can ask for help is an expert in all matters of the afterworld, but I'll need to take Jake with me. My powers aren't what they used to be. I won't be able to travel for long. I can get you there and I can get you back, and that's as good as I can do. But it'll be worth it if you can speak with Mr. Sixsmith."
Stiffkey stood up again abruptly, pushing his chair back.
"No, I won't allow it. Not Mr. Sixsmith. He's a summoner. That'd be very dangerous."
Penny looked up at Stiffkey.
"Don't worry, I'll make sure that Mr. Sixsmith behaves."
She patted Stiffkey's hand comfortingly and toasted him with her flask.
"You can trust me. I'm an expert in handling spirits."
Stiffkey shook his head.
"Well, it don't look like we've got much choice, boy."
There was a buzzing in Jake's pocket, and he retrieved his phone. It was a message from Sab. "What time are you getting here, idiot?" He looked at the time and panicked. It was almost 10 a.m. The bus would be stopping near his dad's soon, and he would be expected at school soon after. Bad Penny and Stiffkey were looking at him, waiting for an answer. "Okay, fine," he said. "I just have to do one thing first."